Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Software Engineer K here, and today we're going to be going through exactly why firstly the captcha system was not working, or in quotation marks not working. It was actually working as intended. I just wanted to break down for you guys exactly which captcha system it is that they are using, just because I am familiar with kind of the development side myself, and I also just wanted to kind of give my thoughts on Comic-Con overall, exactly now that we've had a bit more experience and understanding of how some of the new updates have been rolled out, specifically the buy system, just a bit of feedback on that, or I guess you could say some constructive criticism, and also kind of like what's happening with the general market as well, because I did kind of try and explain it yesterday. I had some audio issues, some of you may have seen, so apologies for that. But if you do want to kind of like just ignore the audio and just kind of see my previous video where I was running around the metaverse and kind of getting to places where you shouldn't really be going, then you can check out that previous video over here. So without further ado, we'll go straight into it now. Twitter, firstly on the captcha point. So a lot of people were asking, hey, the captcha wasn't working, the captcha, it's been removed, etc. So some of you may have gotten to captcha, some of you may have not. Now Dan Crovers, he has addressed this. Firstly, he said the captcha hasn't been removed. At the point of purchase, the captcha performs a risk assessment, and if chance of risk is identified, the captcha will be presented. So I was like, all right, why don't I stop being lazy? I do development in this area anyway. So let's just have a look on exactly what happens. So firstly, what they are using an API, and it's Google's recapture API. So they have integrated that into the app. Essentially, what that allows them to do is they are using a third-party service to present you with a captcha, and it is, in terms of the industry, one of the more sophisticated captcha systems. So I believe they are using Recapture Enterprise, just because version 2 and version 3 are like the older versions, and there's limited amounts of what they can do, because Dan specifically said that it does a risk assessment, which is, indicative of enterprise. So essentially it's customizable. There are specific risk models it uses, and I will go into detail in exactly what that is, but it also uses machine learning, and essentially what it's doing is it's kind of analyzing your activity and determining whether you are human or a robot, or bot in this case, and then decides whether it should present to you the captcha. And that's all done using risk scores, and that risk score is kind of developed and stored as some form of metadata on your device and then sent to the API. Now, if we have a closer look, so they do describe kind of from a high level overview how the recapture system works. So here we have a diagram, and I'll just kind of walk you guys through this. So they've used a web page for this example. I will apply it to the VeVe app. So the end user is yourself, myself, someone using the VeVe app. And here it says customer web page and browser. Just imagine that as the VeVe app instead. So you send a request to load up your app. Your app is now loaded on the buy screen, and then you press buy now. So that firstly sends a request to load the recapture. Now, once that recapture is loaded, what you do is you get back an encrypted token, and essentially what's going to happen is that token is sent to your device, and you will send a response. Now that response may contain some kind of data based on the user activity, and I personally don't know exactly what goes into that data, and I'll touch a little bit on that in a second. But just as an example, so my girlfriend's brother, he made a brand new account, fresh account, like 40 minutes before the drop. He had never ever bought anything before, and he did the poster drop with Jaws, Bill and Ted, etc. He tried to go for a Bill and Ted poster and got that, but he had no captcha. So brand new fresh account, first drop ever, no captcha. I did it. I didn't get a captcha. Now I know some people did get a captcha, so it's interesting to just think about here, what exactly is it that is causing some people to get a captcha, some people to not. And I suspect it might be to do with kind of your where it is in the app that you're looking and your pattern in terms of clicking. That's my suspicion, because it is using machine learning. And if a lot of people that are human are constantly clicking on the market tab and the store tab in a kind of random order, then that program is going to learn that, and it's going to see, is the user, are they doing that a lot? And if they are, maybe that's how it's determining whether it's a human or a bot. But it's using some form of machine learning. That is kind of what I've deduced. But yeah, essentially once it's gotten the token, it does a risk assessment and it gives you a score. So returns a score with reason codes based on the interaction, and then based on the score it determines the next step. And the next step is either it determines you're a human, in which case no captcha needed, or it determines you could be a bot, in which case it will present to you a captcha just to confirm you are a bot or a human. So, there's an article on this as well. Google's recaptcha has a dark side. So they've kind of just spoken a little bit about, how it used to have this kind of I'm not a bot recaptcha, and then over time it's evolved. You would get like images, and then now we have kind of recaptcha enterprise. And, they use this kind of risk-based system, but they haven't actually revealed what signals it is they're using. Obviously, there is a reason for that, because if people knew what signals they were using, they could come up with ways to get around it. But here it says here, to make this risk score system work accurately, website administrator is supposed to embed recaptcha version-free code on all of the pages of the website, and then helping the machine learning algorithm underlying it to generate more accurate risk scores. So, I believe that the VeVe developers, they've probably integrated recaptcha across all pages of, the VeVe app, just so that it's constantly gathering data, and that's the data it uses in order to send to the API endpoint, which then returns back a token that determines whether you are human or a bot, and then you will get presented with the captcha on the result of that determination. So quite a lot to take in, but hopefully that answers that question. The recaptcha system is not broken, it hasn't been turned off, it's working as intended. If you didn't get the captcha, it's because it's working as intended, because most likely your behavior on the app has been identified as being human. Now, on the point of the drops itself, so the drop system, we had this article a while ago, VeVe drop day updates. One of the updates was to the buy now button, and I was pretty happy with the updates. I still am overall pretty happy with the updates. My only constructive criticism is this section of the article is a little bit misleading. So what do I mean by that? Now, my suspicion initially, which has now been confirmed, was if you click the buy now button too early, you get this error, the collectible is not yet available to purchase. And my initial understanding was maybe it's not available to purchase because when you click the buy now button, it sends a request to the server to check if the time for the drop is available. If not, then it returns a response. And in that case, it'll be perfectly fine. If you have a bit of lag, a bit of latency, it's going to take a little bit longer for your request to hit the server. You could probably hit buy now a little bit earlier, like, 200 milliseconds earlier to compensate. But what actually happens is that response is not server-sided, it's client-sided, which is why it's perfectly fine for someone to sit there and spam the buy now button and get this error message. And what people have been doing, if they've been lining this up, so they line up the error message with the buy now button, and you can just spam click, on the okay response there. And, button mashing, they can kind of get the collectibles, which is fine, if that's the way they want to do it. Realistically, if it was a response that they had to send to the server, what would happen is, because you're sending loads of requests to the server and waiting for a response each time, that could actually overload the servers. And also I was thinking, I'm clicking it and I'm getting a response back like absolutely immediately. No way could I have, sent a response, or no way could I have sent a request and received a response so fast, especially if it's like literally 1 second before the drop. It would be lagging a lot more than that. And so that's where my kind of criticism comes in, is this specific sentence here. This is to prevent any lag or latency issues experienced by users with older devices or unstable internet connections. Now, my understanding was this new system where they have the buy now button always available, people would be able to, not have to wait for the button to render. They could click it a bit earlier and their request would probably reach the server in time, as opposed to someone who, maybe has a slightly better connection, just because you're probably more familiar with your connection and area and whatnot, more so than anyone else. But what actually happens is when the timer hits 0, the button actually refreshes. And when that refresh happens, then your request can be sent live to the server. So rather than you having to wait for the timer to hit 0 and a buy now button, loads up, what actually happens is you wait for the timer to hit 0 and the buy now button just refreshes. So nothing has fundamentally actually changed. You still have to wait for the timer to go past that 0 point, but instead of a button appearing, the button just refreshes. So if you do have latency issues, you can't actually compensate for it. You still have to wait for the timer to hit 0. So it's kind of like the exact same book, just with a different cover. So this sentence is a bit misleading. So my constructive criticism would be probably to either clarify this in the article, or maybe the change that we currently have was not the intended change. Maybe it's been developed not in the intended way by, what the business side of the team wanted. So I'm not sure which one it is, but I think either way, it should be addressed for, clarity's sake, because a lot of people had the understanding that because they may live in an area with poorer latency, it's okay for them to press the buy now button like a little bit before that 0 disappears to compensate. But if they do that, because the button hasn't gone live yet, they will get the error regardless. They have to wait for that timer to vanish after the 0. So yeah, they are at the mercy of latency in this case. But that's pretty much my only kind of criticism in that area. Now, lastly, in the point of the market. So this was kind of my initial suspicion when I saw the prices of collectibles kind of just blasting off, especially the DC ones. I saw Superman's floor just go straight to like $700. The Robins were going up quite a bit as well, the Batmans. So people were saying, hey, these are first appearances, therefore they hold a lot of value. But after Comic-Con, we had a huge pullback on prices. You can see here the Ghost Trap there dropped to 600. Some were going for like 500 and something. That is a huge pullback. And so another example is if we look at Superman. I'm not sure what the price of Superman on the app is right now, but I saw him going for about 500-ish when they were initially going for significantly more than that. Now, my concern was people were saying, they're gaining value because their first appearance, because, Superman is a one collectible set, etc. But since Comic-Con weekend ended, Superman is still a first appearance. It's still a one collectible set. The only thing that has changed is Comic-Con is now over. So a lot of that value, I suspect, was not coming from, the pure fundamentals of the Superman collectible. It was coming from a lot of speculative hype that Comic-Con was going to bring in a lot of DC fans. Those DC fans would have loved, Superman collectibles, Batman, etc. And a lot of these people that had accumulated these collectibles with the purpose of flipping them, they have now offloaded purely because of the opportunity cost that they would incur if they had just carried on holding these collectibles until the next Comic-Con. Yes, there will be another Comic-Con, there will, be other chances, but I suspect a lot of these guys who were trying to flip, they're quite impatient and they've just offloaded in the market. And so, it depends how you look at it, right? I myself saw this opportunity and I personally bought a Nightwing. So Nightwing dropped from about 1,000 gems to 840 gems, pretty good discount. And I picked up a Nightwing just because I never had one. And this was probably the best chance for me to do so. And there are other discounts in the market, but I said in this post, just as some collectibles appear overvalued right now, there are loads that are undervalued. I suspect a lot of the Comic-Con exclusive collectibles, there is a lot of FOMO behind them. I saw, the posters, like the Jaws ones, they were going for 300 gems. That seems like quite a lot. Now that the FOMO's kind of come down, I see them going for around about 220, 230. And I suspect they will probably come down a bit more just after this weekend. Well, later on in this week. Probably when we get the next drop, a lot of people who did accumulate will probably start to sell off for gems, and then we'll kind of get a more realistic, less hyped up floor price. But that's just how it is. The market moves in cycles. So right now we are still currently in the hype cycle of these Comic-Con exclusives. We'll then go to a more realistic floor, and then later on when these CE collectibles have more utility, or there's some other fundamentals behind that drive them up, then yeah, they will slowly start to appreciate in value, because they are the first Comic-Con exclusives. They will hold some kind of significance which adds intrinsic value to them, but it's just too early since Comic-Con ended to gauge at what their realistic value is for now. But these early season 1 collectibles, the hype's completely gone from them. What we're seeing now is kind of what the true valuation is, and you can see these ultra rares from season 1, they're still valued at like 10 times what they cost at retail, which is pretty high. So that is like a realistic floor for them. And to me, if 6 months from now these Comic-Con exclusives are valued at 10 times what their retail price is as their realistic floor price, because by then we'll probably have some other collectibles that people are hyping up, then yeah, I'm perfectly fine with that. But who knows. So lastly, what I just wanted to touch on is the price of Omi for today. So, nothing spectacular. We are trading sideways. However, significant news is Amazon is now going to be accepting cryptocurrency as payments, Bitcoin. So Bitcoin has started to move upwards, and we know that altcoins do eventually follow. So we've got this nice pattern here. We had a pump with Omi and then trading sideways, and we had another pump, and now we're currently trading sideways. And what I suspect will happen is we will have a third pump, which will be catalyzed partly by Bitcoin, partly by the upcoming MTO, and move to Immutable X, which will push us beyond this 0.5 cent range. And then from there, we will have another pullback, which will probably come halfway down below here. So I would say 0.4 cents is going to be like the next area where we start to trade sideways. Just along this kind of like point of resistance here. Yep, just along here. That's about 0.41, 0.42 cents. And then from there, we will just repeat until we break our all-time high of around about 1.2, 1.3 cents. And, I suspect that will probably come sooner than later. I suspect it will be this year when they start to have a much, much bigger push on the marketing. And by then, the kind of prediction is Bitcoin will have broken its all-time high as well. But we will have to see. No one has a crystal ball, but that is just going to be my kind of prediction for now. So yeah, probably will have a bit more sideways movement for the upcoming, I would say, next 4 weeks before we kind of get more information on the Immutable X and MTL. But yeah, that's pretty much everything I wanted to go through with you guys today. Thanks so much for watching. Please do like and subscribe to support the content, and I'll see you guys in the next video. See ya.